Warning, if you've never played Dark Souls before and were planning to make the remaster your first time jumping into the series, stop watching this video now. I'll be spoiling certain locations, secrets and bosses that will ruin the surprise and impact of them that is vital to a first time player. Hey everyone, Caddy here, and Dark Souls 1 is one of my favourite games of all time. Even though Bloodborne was the first From Software game I played to completion, and then I finished Dark Souls 3 when it came out, once I decided to go back to the original Dark Souls out of my newfound love for the dev team, I was absolutely blown away by how well it's held up since 2011. I actually played Demon's Souls on PS3 first before any other Souls game, but I never properly finished it, and I wasn't playing the game in the way it wanted me to. I made it unnecessarily difficult for myself, and as far as Dark Souls 2 goes, well, that's a game, isn't it? Point is though, Dark Souls 1 is quite flawed, but I can forgive it for nearly every single iffy thing since the experience it gave me was one of the greatest I've ever had in my gaming life. In 2015, Dark Souls 2 had a next-gen console and PC remaster of the original game with revamped enemy placements, items, and all DLC included, known as Scholar of the First Sin. But this was rather controversial at the time it came out. It wasn't released too long after the original Dark Souls 2 released, and in all the trailer footage and gameplay reveals leading up to the original game, the quality that was featured in Scholar of the First Sin was much closer to what was promised for 2014's original Dark Souls 2. Also, since the reception for Dark Souls 2 was rather mixed after the hype died down, many people hated the fact it decided to tweak loads of random elements just to make it a little bit more interesting. Basically, for many people, Scholar of the First Sin is a cash grab. And unfortunately, many people feel the same way about 2018's Dark Souls Remastered, and I can't blame them for that. Dark Souls Remastered is the fucking worst thing I've experienced for a long time, and I feel like I needed to make a video about it to discuss why I feel this love-hate relationship with it, starting with what I love about it. Also, just in case any of you are curious on how I played the game myself, I'd be happy to tell you. I finished the game and every single boss, including optional ones, in 27 hours at level 101. As far as my name goes, this is my stepdaughter Amy's favourite game to watch, so I made my character after her. I got 24 out of 41 achievements in that time and played entirely offline, so I had no messages or summons that could save me. By the way, I didn't even summon NPCs during bosses because fuck it, I like a good challenge. I mostly dual-wielded from start to end with a couple of moments of parrying that I finally managed to get the hang of after all this time. I never grinded. I began with leveling into strength as much as possible, ignored magic and miracles entirely, and went straight for Darkroot Basin as soon as I could, very under level, so that I could loot the Black Knight halberd from the Black Knight Guard in the hidden bonfire, which I then proceeded to wield for a lot of the game with pathetic armor on so I could have the most effective dodges while wearing Havel's Ring and the Ring of Favor and Protection. Then decided to level entirely into endurance, dropped my halberd for a freshly upgraded plus 15 broadsword to save myself tons of weight, and got my endurance up to such a level where I was able to wear some incredibly effective armor with extreme poise while giving off great damage while being able to dodge extremely quickly. Sorry for the technicalities, there are just so many fucking ways to play this game that I know some people out there like to know how others tackle the challenges, so yeah, that's how I played this game in particular. Anyway, let's start with the stuff I love about the game. First of all, I can't even describe how brilliant it is to have an excuse to head back to the world of Lordran and play through one of the best games I've ever played again. In the best possible quality, without the PC port being a pain in the ass and the console ports being pretty lackluster in comparison. Rediscovering all the secrets and NPC encounters with their quest lines, rereading the item descriptions for lore, rediscovering and kicking the boss's asses one after the other, enjoying and getting frustrated with the brutally hard gameplay relying on patience and timing, getting killed and losing tens of thousands of souls and then having the tenses run back through the same enemies and constant death traps with your one last chance to retrieve them before they disappear forever, getting tons better and more confident with side dodging and even dodging into enemies, and surprisingly discovering brand new things that I never even noticed before after all this time, and it made the whole game feel like a fresh yet familiar experience. And hey, I mean, just look at the game. It looked pretty damn good for 2011, but now looks fucking fantastic, jumping from 720 to 1080p for most people, and if you have a PS4 Pro, Xbox One X, or a beefy PC, 4K is even available. Oh yeah, and the load times are super duper quick. Even better, it now plays at a totally consistent and buttery 60 frames per second. Yes, even in Blighttown, the most infamous part of the original game since mixing the belligerent darkness, fast-killing toxic poison, and confusing vertical, heavy, breaking floorboard level design with frame drops of up to single digits made it most people's place that they dropped the game and never picked it up again. Not for me personally, I don't think this is the worst area in Dark Souls by far, it's one of my favourite areas, but still, it's much better to play through it now. And the performance isn't improved just there either. Any slightly more intense part of the game, from groups of enemies to towering bosses with complex animated attacks, never killed the frame rate a single time for me, at least on PC. I played this on Steam myself. There's also a few tiny tweaks to the gameplay that really benefit the experience, and some of them are actually in the newer games. Just for a few examples, by holding the item scrolling button down, you can jump immediately to your Estus Flask, your main healing source, making it tons easier to dash for health if you're using other items during heated moments. You can now use multiple souls that you collect at once from your inventory instead of using them all one at a time, saving minutes upon minutes bits of fiddling in order to boost your currency. They also added a new bonfire right by a hidden blacksmith in the Caddicarus, one of the trickier areas of the game, making it much easier to not only warp there and fix up fire weapons, but also helps out massively if you die by that horde of fucking terrifying wheel skeletons outside. You also get all the incredible DLC included, which is nice, and honestly, that's all that was really noticeable in terms of pure single-player gameplay for me. The rest of the changes are with stability of the online features and conveniences for it, which I didn't ever use, so it didn't really affect me. There's stuff like password matchmaking for getting friends in on your game much easier, like in Bloodborne, the ability to change covenants at will at a bonfire to farm different items from invasions, and a dedicated server for everybody, improving online stability overall. But yeah, I never bothered with any of this, so I don't care. What I do care about though is, well, everything else. I may love Dark Souls Remastered, but fucking hell, it's also kind of shit for a lot of people, and here's why. First of all, for as good as it is, it's not a flawless remaster. I still had a few issues with it, such as using souls. Yes, you can use multiple ones of the same kind of soul now, but still, every time you use the item from the inventory, it completely closes everything, meaning you gotta keep opening the inventory from the pause menu over and over again, which is a little bit annoying. And I did notice this time that the sound design really wasn't that great. For the most part, it's okay, but for a fucking remaster, there were moments where there definitely should have been some improvements, like background noise or reverb being there, but they just don't use it. And yeah, even though Dark Souls 2 wasn't the best game in the Souls series by a long shot in my opinion, I can at least say that changing up the game itself in a few ways was a bit of a surprise, something that Dark Souls Remastered doesn't do. Not even as an alternate harder mode or something. Newer mechanics like using 2 weapons on each hand would have been very cool to see, as well as multi-directional dodging while locked onto an enemy so that you have total control of where you move instead of just 4 fucking directions. And here's the thing guys, I fucking love the game at its base enough as it is without any of these additions, but if I'm shelling out £35, i.e. around $55 for this remaster that is basically exactly the same game, I think a few more updates would have been fucking appreciated. Even if it were optional, just something for 7 years of a gap in releases of Dark Souls 1. The most egregious thing is related to the Steam version of the game though. A while ago I was a PS4 only player, my PC is powerful enough but I only used it for work and can't mix play and work in the same location in the same chair, so I never bothered with PC gaming. Until Acer were kind enough to give me an insanely powerful gaming laptop to help out with my reviews. Ever since then I have used Steam whenever I could and I've been loving it, but when I noticed how expensive this thing was on Steam specifically, I raised an eyebrow. I would totally understand someone wanting to own a better version of the game on PS4 or even the Nintendo Switch version, and yeah, it's still pretty costly, but I'd say for such a huge jump in quality from the original game to the next gen console with all DLC included, if you ever wanted to play this game before, give it a fucking go now. It's definitely worth it and much better than the PS3 and Xbox 360 originals. But for PC users specifically, they have been totally ripped off by all of this. I have heard countless horror stories of how broken, jumpy in frames, glitchy and unoptimized the original PC version of Dark Souls was back in 2012, and it was so bad to the point of a guy creating a mod known as DS Fix that fixed everything that From Software blatantly refused to address. Even to this day, it's a pain in the ass for many people to get the game running perfectly, and the fact that From Software locked that chance for those players behind a paywall is absolutely insane. Maybe not as insane as Scholar of the First Sin that actually had the game released to a spec it was advertised at in the fucking first place, but it's still pretty bad for a game 7 years old. And hey, the original Dark Souls on PC, you can't even buy it from Steam anymore, so you have no choice. If you don't own it, just shell out tons of money for the better version of the game when it was in a free mod before. What the fuck? Even more of a crime is that nowadays people's PCs are 5 times as powerful as they would have been back when the game first came out, so even people like Some Call Me Johnny played the original Steam release of Dark Souls on PC recently, with it being already purchased of course, without the mod, and noted no major technical problems whatsoever. So what are PC users getting out of this remaster exactly other than a more stable online which people like me don't really care about? Nothing, or at least nothing that a mod made by a random person for free couldn't fix, or that From Software themselves couldn't have just added in a patch fucking years ago but chose not to so that they could milk the customer years later. The game even released on PC as the Prepare to Die edition with all the DLC included. And yeah, if you already owned Dark Souls 1 on Steam before it was taken off the store, you'd get a discount on the remaster at half price. Sounds good, I hear you say, but that's still for the UK £17.50 you're shelling out, around $35 for no major differences to the core game whatsoever now that PCs are more powerful, mods exist, and the fact that patches could have been released but they just chose not to, not even as an apology to those people that first bought the game. I mean, if you ask me, it's a way fucking better deal than Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze for the Switch, which I shelled out £40 for. £40 for exactly the same 4-year-old game, but at the very least I can say I now get to play it portably. To be fair, I still find this just as a whole way more arrogant and overpriced than DS Remastered. It's like Nintendo A, knew that their fans would pay fucking anything for exactly the same game with no major enhancements, and B, knew how bad the Wii U was as a concept and so just decided to abandon it while still charging the same for the exact same games that used to be on it. That's another story though, I digress. As far as Dark Souls Remastered for PC users goes though, don't bother. I would only recommend this on consoles if you want to give the game a go and have never played it before, or haven't played the PC version of the original game nowadays, which is essentially the same thing, and I really think that the least From Software could have done as an apology is offer this remaster as a free upgrade to all the PC people that were ripped off all that time ago. I mean, Christ, when Bioshock Remastered came out, you got that for free if you had the original Bioshock. That's what happened to me. I didn't even realise it until I saw it in my Steam library. In that way, I think charging half price for the upgrade is even more of an insult. It's like, yeah, we could just give you this for nothing because we fucked up, but we just won't. You're gonna have to pay something. And I do think, for as much as I love the game itself, it deserves the negative reviews and mixed reception on Steam, because no matter how good or beloved you know your game is from Software, this doesn't mean you can exploit the people that got it where it was in the first place. If it's your birthday today while watching this video, happy friggin' birthday to you, and please remember to stay beautiful. Thank you so much for watching this video on Dark Souls Remastered, everybody. I hope that you're enjoying it if you've never played the game before, and I hope that you didn't buy it if you had the original version on PC already, because I feel fucking sorry for you. Special thanks to all the people on screen right now that are going through the credits who have helped support this channel via Patreon, with all of YouTube's demonetization and ad-friendly bullshit, which obviously I'm a little bit stuck with because I swear a few times, which is very naughty. And special thanks to the top tier supporters: Omar Matu, Basil, Patrick Ferguson, Robert Alamsha, I Have a Portal Gun, Gamer Man, Matthew Hubble, Chumbawamba, Cyberpunk Symphony, Star Ira Lance J, Sakari, The Pinkinator, Binary Code, Exopaz, Thomas Olson, Daniel Leon, Jane Ives, Mitchell Reed, A.D. Thornton Smith, Oblivion Rising, Ellen Rilpley, Kirsten B, QB, Nathan Young, and Nicole Gunara. Thank you so much, every single one of you.